that moves into the mother's gaze at the baby, and how she regards the baby, and how she mirrors the baby, so that the baby begins to have a feeling of her own existence, that she exists. Maybe not separate from the mother, maybe in a kind of more general, outside the womb-like environment that is comforting and safe, and it's safe for the baby to explore, and she feels, when the mother looks at her, she feels a kind of like, here I am, and isn't that wonderful? Just a real basic idea. I'm here, and that's exquisite, and it has nothing to do with thinking. It's a feeling in the body that's a kind of thrill. That she feels maybe, most of all in her mouth when she's suckling. I remember hearing that babies have like millions more taste buds in their mouths than adult humans. And so there's this ecstatic kind of thing that happens in the suckling process. If all of that goes well. And then the baby can start to baby girl can start to individuate out. She begins to feel more and more herself, begins to experiment with that. And if the mother's gaze is interested in her and curious about her and wanting to know about her, then more and more of her neurons can come online and start growing, and who she is in potentia. And I guess from a Jungian point of view, we'd say, she comes in as herself with all the archetypal configurations that we all have, and then they're stimulated in a particular way based on how the mother gazes at the baby. And so it's a very potent situation that Alan Shore has demonstrated. Actually, the baby's frontal lobe lights up when the mother interacts like this with the baby, and all the potential for who this baby is going to be comes online through this stimulation. And the baby develops greater and greater capacity for stimulation and pleasure. Stimulation, pleasure, more and more and more in her own existence and in her own body. That's a feeling in her body. Then at a certain point, she begins to be able to walk and separate from the mother and come back to the mother. And again, the mother is encouraging of that and supportive of that, and doesn't punish her for it. Then she again gets to feel her own aggression, we could say, her aggression in the world, her interest and curiosity and excitement about being alive in the world. Somewhere around age 2, actually feels a sense in her own, the presence of her own genitalia, that somehow lines up with her sense of self. That these things are in line with each other. And that's kind of thrilling too. It's a way, it's like the beginning maybe of some kind of ego identity. Like I'm my body's me, and my genitals feel good, and I can stand and I can move, and then if that goes well, then we get to stage 3, where we're getting to today. Now, I want to say in the first 2 stages, what's going on here is that the mother is really she's a good environment. She's not an actual person to the baby. She's more like a good holding environment. She provides a presence that allows the baby to become more and more and more herself. And she's experienced as like caring and comforting and tender and holding and a safe haven to go to if there's any kind of difficulties. But she's not a person. She's not like a person. She's more like, sometimes there's this idea of part objects, like in the Kleinian world, she's like a breast. She's a good breast, and that's what she is. Or she's good gaze, or good arms and holding. But there's not this whole person there. It's more like just a feeling of goodness and holding. And all of that changes when we get to this Oedipal stage. That changes dramatically. So let's see. So that's sort of laying this foundation here. Then I want to talk a little bit about what can go wrong. Is that what I should talk about next?
Heteronormativity.
Yeah. Okay. Let me talk about heteronormativity, because that has something to do with what can go wrong. Especially for the lesbian baby, but for all children, actually, for my feeling about it. So heteronormativity is this idea. Oh wait, I'm going to backtrack just for a second. What I want to say about these three stages is why they pack such a wallop, why they are so intense for the lesbian girl, is because unlike any other sexual orientation, everything is around this mother. Every single stage. Okay, this mother is central. She's, the moon. She's the sun. She's the stars. She's the whole universe. And that's not true for other sexual orientations. And so, she mirrors the gender orientation. She's the early comforter, and then she's the love object. So there's something about the accumulation of these three phases of interaction with the mother that causes the mother to be really just absolutely, above and beyond the main thing going on in lesbian psyche. And I'll talk about the father. He's there, but it's like, we just can't compare what's going on here. So heteronormativity is basically this idea, and there's quotes from this article that is really good on this subject that talks about heteronormativity. But it's basically the system that we live under, that this system exists actually all over the world in all cultures. And it's a system that privileges, that assumes that everybody is heterosexual, and privileges heterosexuality, and everything that comes along with that, which means the family, having babies. I'm going to say, from an archetypal point of view, that heterosexuality really is tied up with extroversion and the literal world and the material world, because it's about birthing literal. It's about when the man and the woman come together, and their eros is all about the other, not about sames. And the numinosity of their interaction has a great deal to do with the fact that their interaction actually brings about literal children, which is a magical thing. But it's really been made into a religion and a dogma, and it's really considered to be the only way to be in the world. And that's a problem. Not only for homosexual children, although profoundly it is, but for heterosexual children too, who may have other ideas or other inclinations besides just giving birth to children. Not that that's not a value, but giving birth to children and raising them up and dedicating your life to that, which really, let's face it, is the woman's job. You know, there are men who I guess participate, but really the body, you're talking about the body, that's what, you know, you can't have the baby without the mother's body. So she has to really dedicate herself and her body and her bodily existence to this project of sustaining heteronormativity and all of the systems that surround it. Whereas homosexuality is, since it's about sames, it's more about introversion, it's more about the imaginal world, and that really is not valued in the heteronormative paradigm. So, and the other idea I want to just put forth is the idea of the double, which is Mitch Walker's idea about the archetype of the same sex. Jung said that there was a contrasexual archetype in everybody that was like a soul figure that connected you to the divine within. But his idea was completely heterosexual because he only talked about that in a woman there's this male inner masculine, and in a man there's an inner feminine. And Mitch's idea is that we have an inner same-sex figure, and that figure, when relationship with that figure is cultivated, gives rise to what Plato called children of the mind, but what Margaret Fuller called children of the muse. And being lesbianic here, we're going to go with children of the muse. I just discovered that. So the double is the inner feminine in a woman and the inner masculine, and it's more about the imaginal world. And that really is not valued in the heteronormative paradigm. So, and the other idea I want to just put forth is the idea of the double, which is Mitch Walker's idea about the archetype of the same sex. Jung said that there was a contrasexual archetype in everybody that was like a soul figure that connected you to the divine within. But his idea was completely heterosexual because he only talked about that in a woman there's this male inner masculine, and in a man there's an inner feminine. And Mitch's idea is that we have an inner same-sex figure, and that figure, when relationship with that figure is cultivated, gives rise to what Plato called children of the mind, but what Margaret Fuller called children of the muse. And being lesbianic here, we're going to go with children of the muse. I just discovered that. So the double is the inner feminine in a woman and the inner masculine in a man. And she has 4 different aspects because she's about gender, she's about femininity. And so she's the mother, the daughter, the sister, the lover, whereas for a man it would be the father, son, brother, lover. Under the system of heteronormativity, the only aspect of the double for women that is allowed pretty much is the mother-daughter aspect. There really isn't anything else allowed. And if you think about mother-daughter, there's no eros there, obviously. There's no, the mother is the birthing nurturer, but a good breast. But when we think mother, we talk about mother, we're not thinking like, wow, big pussy, eros, stimulating, exciting woman. That's not the feeling of it, at least for me, as I'm trying to feel into this situation. And the sister lover aspect is just really not represented, and I would say that's where the women's adult erotic desire lives. If there's a relationship cultivated with one's double, one's sister, whether you're literally a lesbian, your eros runs in that direction, or you're heterosexual, still to have this relationship cultivated with this inner feminine figure gives you a location in your own body and your own erotic life from which to go forward and interact wherever you're going to